Okay, um, yes, so we are up to week 5 now. Okay, this lecture is supposed to be happening on Thursday, but because Dr. Lee needs the slot for to do the Microsoft project, the demo for Microsoft project, so therefore I will post this up after. I will post this up first, it's okay, but just be reminded that her class will be first, okay, because her class will be a continuation from how to do a schedule. So for this particular class, I am actually going to go through with you that there are some things that basically are not being covered by schedule, and therefore we need another method to look at it, okay. So one of the reason being, Gantt chart actually it does not provide a lot of things, okay. It is very easy to read, it's very easy to be presented, it's very nice to look at, and it can actually give the information in a rather quick manner, but in terms of analysis it can be quite tedious, and then there's a lot of there's a lot of prompting to mistake as well, because you may be looking at a very long list, and then when you want to do the interdependencies, or you want to do the sequencing of activities, interdependencies, and also parallel activities, things may get a bit more complicated, okay. So here we are looking at this Gantt chart does not provide you with a detailed sequence of activities. It does, but it takes it is not very clear, it is not very straightforward in that sense. Then the interdependency among the activities is actually less obvious. So the other thing is there is also lack of analysis in terms of spare time and critical times and all that, and we use that with this particular network diagram. So we will replace that with this particular network diagram. Okay, so the sequencing of activities here is better to be presented using what we call a network technique. Okay, when you put everything in a picture, it's a lot easier to read and see compared to when you put it in the list, you see. So but for network techniques, I prefer only to use the major activities, okay, because it's not much of a point to actually go into the smaller activities and try to complicate things, okay, unless the secondary activity are actually quite critical as well, then you will put it into the network. So network is basically, if you have 15 major activities, you use 15 major activities. If you have 20 major activities, you use 20 major activities, and then you line them up in a network kind of format. Network means that you have a node, you have an arrow, so those are what we call engineering called network, okay. And basically, there's two types of network. One is called activity on node, AON. One is called activity arrow diagramming method, AOA, activity on arrow. So these two, very simply, will just put all the activities either on the node or on the arrow itself, and then you draw the node and arrow, and then it forms a very clear, complete pictures about what to do next, okay. And before I go in, I want to talk about I don't want to talk about CPM first. I think CPM can be the next slide, but I just want to tell you that there is a few things that you need to note when it comes to drawing the network. Let me see what I can see. I'll show you here, okay. So this is actually network. This is how the network will look like actually. This is a activity on arrow. Okay, so when we have activity on arrow, the event is actually 1, 2, 3. The node is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is how you name the node, or A, B, C, D, E. And the A, B, C, D, E just basically means the start of one activity, ending of the other activity. So, but the activity itself is presented on the arrow itself. There's another method, is basically the node itself. The node itself is the activity, and the arrow itself is just the starting to the ending, and the starting of the next activity is just a representative. Okay, so basically each arrow or node will present an activity, and the arrow each arrow or node okay, so we're talking about AOA and LN at the same time here, and only one arrow or one node will represent one activity, okay. And arrow has no vertical significance, means that if it's not because it's longer, means that the activity is longer, or it means that the event is a lot longer. No, so arrow and arrow tail actually in AON, okay, arrow tail in AON will actually signifies the start of the activity, and the arrow head will actually be the completion of the activity. And this is actually different when it comes to AON, because when it comes to AON, the arrow head itself will be the starting of that particular activity, the arrow end will be the end of the activity. So this one is strictly applicable to AOA, okay, and it will be vice versa, okay, and it will be it will be completely different, okay, opposite, we'll say, when it comes to with AON, okay, opposite when it comes to with AON. Okay. Just to be a bit clear about it, I don't want you to be confused. Okay, so this activity, these are arrow signifies a complete of an activity on AOA, and it's completely different, opposite when it comes to AON. Okay, so each activity can have a start and a finished. Okay, so meaning that whether it's on the activity arrow itself or on a node itself, there will be a start, there will be a finish. Okay, so at the start, at the end of an activity is an event. Okay, so event in AOA is actually the node. Okay, and in AON is actually the arrow. So I hope this is clear. So these are some of the basic definition. So events can be represented by circles or nodes or the arrow itself. Okay, each circle will be numbered. Okay, so even though if it's in AON or AOA, it will be numbered. Okay, so there will be some there will be something that you need to note. There's some sequential activity that you will have a sequence, meaning that, like for example, C, you must finish A before C. These are what we call interdependent sequential activity. C and D or E and F are what we call parallel activity. So if let's say this node is also parallel with one another, this one means that they are not interconnected. Okay, and so this is how we are actually defining our network. This is how we actually draw. Okay, there are some conditions that they may have a predecessors but no successor, and or they may have a successor but no predecessors. Why do I say that? Because at the end of the event, at the end of the project, there will be no more successor but there is a predecessor. At the beginning of the event, they may have a successor but no predecessors. Okay, and in AON, in AOA, activities can be dummy. There may be a dummy activity which I will show to you in some of the examples later. Okay, so most of the time you will have a predecessor and a successor. So there will be some network do's and don'ts that you have to look into. This is going to be in the PDF notes that I have also given out. Okay, so when you do proper arrow diagramming method or node diagramming method, so you don't actually do this sort of like take it out from the top, and coming down from the bottom kind of thing. You don't join it. You always join it at the end and at the beginning. Okay, and then you don't go backwards. There's no left to right, there's always left. There's no right to left, there's always right to left. So you don't jump like that. Okay, and then you don't split the relationship lines. Okay, you don't combine the relationship lines, sorry, you must split it out very clearly, and then you don't cross those lines as well. So these are proper diagramming technique. Okay, and then you must keep in mind when you draw it as much as possible. Crossing sometimes is unavoidable, but you must jump. Okay, but you don't just cross like that. Okay,